We head to Parliament in New Zealand now, and the government's contentious, protracted and obstacle course journey to, well, pass its reforms of the Resource Management Act. Labour oppose it, the Greens oppose it, New Zealand First oppose it, ACT and United Future have opposed it, but today said they were prepared to do a deal with the government in return for 3 changes. The government doesn't need their support if it gets the Maori Party's 2 votes, and today the Maori Party announced, and I quote, it has reached agreement with the government to support the remaining stages of the Resource Legislation Amendment Bill. What does that agreement look like? And does the controversial clause 360D stay or go? In Hawke's Bay, they really want it gone. You're listening to, and if you're watching, you're seeing, a video made by Pure Hawke's Bay, a series of postcard scenes and pastoral magnificences. The region at its cleanest, greenest, and if you'll forgive the language, its GM-freest.
From our rivers to our sea to where we're from. This is about our people, our whenua, our kai.
Our food grown in Hawke's Bay is GM-free.
We don't grow genetically modified food crops, and we want to keep it that way.
We export and market our food across the world as GM-free.
This is our point of difference. It gives us a competitive economic advantage.
You get the point. Hawke's Bay is a GM-free region and proud of it. Don't believe me?
We're proud to be GM-free.
Point taken, but not perhaps by the government. The Resource Legislation Amendment Bill, currently before Parliament, as we know, has a clause 360D, and in short, it reduces a council's ability to declare its region GMO-free and gives the government greater powers to override such declarations. So, Hawke's Bay is GM-free.
But our GM-free status is under threat.
That's Lawrence Yule, the Mayor of Hastings District Council, also in that video.
Stand by the regions.
Why is GM-free so important to Hawke's Bay? Well, the region's largest organic apple producer is Bostock, and John Bostock is matter-of-fact about the answer.
New Zealand is small and expensive, and our place in the world is selling at a premium at the top end, and it simply doesn't go with GM-type technology.
He can't compete on quantity and he can't compete on price, but he can compete on quality, and organic GM-free apples sell for more. Bostock isn't alone. Large producers, less publicly associated with such market niches, feel the same about 360D. Biggest of them all, Fonterra.
There is no demonstrable need for this additional power to reside with the minister. It may also reduce the ability for stakeholders to provide input on any new regulation. For these reasons, Fonterra opposes the insertion of new section 360D.
New Zealand Beef and Lamb says, under 360D,
the potential for this power to be used to override the agreed local communities' planning processes and decisions will be a cause for concern, with the potential to be used for short-term issues of the day rather than long-term sustainable outcomes.
Fonterra and NZ Beef and Lamb, not exactly hotbeds of green activism, which leads Labour to ask,
who in their right mind would hand broad sweeping executive powers to Nick Smith to overrule local democracy?
That's David Parker, who says the legislation is flawed and that one of the parties that voted for it at the second reading was strikingly wrong to do so.
It takes away appeal rights, it's going to make it even more difficult to sort out our dirty rivers. All these things are important to Maoridom as they are to other people, and the Maori Party seems to be being bought off in respect of this process point despite the flaws in the legislation.
And here's where the politics become interesting and confusing. National needs the Maori Party to get the bill through, and the Maori Party opposes GM as a general point of principle.
Remaining GE-free has been part of the Maori Party policy since 2004, the inception of the party. It has appeared in 2 of our relationship agreements with the government and continues to be our stand.
But Marama Fox and Te Ururoa Flavel gave their votes to the bill for the second reading. Our producer, Bridget Burke, asked Marama Fox, what's changed?
We have no change in position. Our position remains the same. What we have agreed with the Minister is that we would vote as a vote of good faith at the second reading.
David Parker is less generous. He believes the Maori Party are betraying principle for a backroom quid pro quo.
Nick Smith's desperate to get this through because he's for years said that the RMA is the reason for the Auckland housing crisis. The Maori Party look like they're going to trade their vote for some improved rights of participation for Maoridom.
So what's going on? If the Maori Party are giving Nick Smith the numbers he needs, how can they do so without betraying an ideological opposition to GM that dates back to the party's foundation? Has 360D gone? And if it hasn't, Bridget Burke asked Marama Fox if she can commit to voting against the bill if it still contains 360D.
No, we're not making that commitment not to support the bill at third reading, but we have given a commitment for the GE-free that if we can't get that through, we will no longer be supporting the bill.
All will be answered soon, but today ACT's David Seymour and United Future's Peter Dunn, who don't oppose GM per se, but have opposed the bill so far, an inversion of the Maori Party's position, offered Nick Smith their support if 360D goes, and also if it excludes, and I quote, additional iwi consultation requirements. But that's what David Parker believes the Maori Party is getting in return for their support. I phoned Peter Dunn. And so what do you think Nick Smith is going to do?
I don't know. I suspect he will cave into the demands of the Maori Party. I don't know. But all we're doing is putting our proposal out there afresh because it is a pragmatic and sensible way through a dilemma that the government's created entirely for itself over the last 4 years. If you like, we're going out of our way to be helpful. Whether they choose to accept the offer or not is entirely their business. So a fallback position if the minister can't get the Maori Party over the line, but one with more strings attached than the government seems prepared to pull. This legislation has been a bit like a lolly scramble in which the government support parties haven't liked the lollies. They still don't, even as David Seymour and Peter Dunn offer to support the legislation with changes. Neither party leader likes it very much at all. We both oppose it for different reasons. I think it goes far too far in terms of overriding the rights of communities, etc. David thinks it doesn't go far enough, but the point we both agree on is bad legislation. Peter Dunn, if he thinks it's bad legislation and David Seymour thinks it's bad legislation, what are the Maori Party getting out of supporting it? Well, we don't know. And what's happened to 360D? Well, we don't know. But we will find out, and in part we will do so, we hope, by talking to Nick Smith, who has agreed to be on Checkpoint with us tomorrow. We look forward to that conversation.